Welcome to Laguna Seca. Welcome to our 6th event in the BULERS SimGear GT3 Premier League season number 8. We're in Monterey, California. We are at the fabulous Laguna Seca Raceway, a circuit that has so much history behind it, a circuit that is a very different challenge than what we had just a week ago at Spa-Francorchamps, almost half the length. The WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca compared to the circuit Spa-Francorchamps, and we have more cars this time around. Let's take a look at the layout, though. You see there the famous corkscrew, the Andretti hairpin, the first corner of the lap. A great overtaking opportunity there, potentially. Understanding we're going to have good weather all throughout this race, unlike Spa, where, of course, there was certainly some challenges in that department. So bright sunshine for the drivers as they come out for this 20-minute qualifying session. It will be a 20-minute qualifying followed by 2 races, a 20-minute sprint and a 40-minute feature race. And there is the number 10 car. There is Vladislav Boyko Shopov, sorry. Boyko Shopov rather than Vladislav Boyko in the number 10 Porsche. It is Vladislav Shopov in the Impulse Racing car that currently leads the championship. Boyko Shopov of JRS has been competitive all season long, though, and this is the Impulse Racing car. This is Vladislav Shopov, who now leads the championship by quite a comfortable margin. Some 87 points clear of Philip Koenig in second position. Viktor Varbanov, really the only driver that could also dispute the championship, third in the points for JRS, Viktor Varbanov. So it's down to a 3-horse race in the pro class, I would suggest at this stage, but it's a race that could change. Vladislav Shopov needs a solid weekend here, but certainly for Philip Koenig, he needs a brilliant weekend to really be within a shout of championship glory. 87 points back. This man Shopov is on 750 points currently. And then Philip Koenig on 663. Now, bear in mind, there will be a drop score to take into account as well at the conclusion of the season. But at the moment, signs are pointing towards Vladislav Shopov. However, if he gets a poor run here at Laguna, that could throw things into disarray a little bit. As you can see, this circuit a lot narrower than a lot of the tracks we've been to so far this year. You look at the kind of Formula One caliber circuits we've been to, like Spa, like Portimao. They are very open, expansive, and wide, whereas Laguna Seca is a different ball game. It's even a different beast from somewhere like Road America. Road America at 4 miles in length with also, again, quite a wide racing surface. Laguna Seca is a very different challenge. However, it's a challenge where overtaking is certainly possible. It's a facility that seems to lend itself to good racing despite itself. You take a look at the track map, you take a look at maybe the width of the corners and think, well, overtaking is going to be a challenge. But you do often see door handle to door handle action here at Laguna on the sim. And indeed in real-world competition in GT machinery. It's Shopov then with the current benchmark in the qualifying session. He's the first to really set a representative timer. 1 minute 21.097 is the early benchmark that he's just set on that first lap. Everyone else coming in under the 125s as well. Will we see anyone get into the teens over the course of this quali then? We'll see how they measure up as the session goes on. Very early doors, of course, in this qualifying. Last week it was Easter in Bulgaria, and we lost a few entries as a result of that, but over 30 cars taking the start this weekend at Laguna. It's going to be a very hectic run for the first corner. We got one car spinning there in the back of shot. It looked like it might have been the Audi of Vasil Jekov, actually. Is that Jekov? I think it is. Yes, it is. The number 12 car having a bit of a moment at turn 1. The mid-engine cars, like the Audi, of course, are on a delicate knife edge. Same goes for the Ferrari 296. You need to be very careful with what you're doing with the right foot in mid-corner. Great overhead views there of the Andretti hairpin as we check in with Brown in the Ferrari. Connor Brown for Impulse Racing. Impulse splitting their lineup across Porsche and Ferrari machinery. And it is currently Impulse Racing that lead the championship in the team standings. 1,660 points for Impulse Racing. Next best team are JRS on 1,510 points, 1510. So a 150 point margin, but of course there is room for big point scores here. 150 points are available each weekend for drivers. Of course, in the team standings, then that is all the more significant. There's more points to be scored. There is Koenig. Turns into a sweeping left-hander there with some lap traffic going rally crossing in front of him. I think that was Sampson in the Ferrari. Koenig down through the corkscrew then. Burgess is on a quick lap as well, third fastest at the moment. He was just coming across the line there, and Burgess goes second fastest. Looked like Koenig may have had a momentary disconnect or something like that for a moment. He vanished away, heads into the pit lane now as well. There is the Drumaliev-driven Ferrari in 16th place at the moment. First of your AM runners at this stage of the qualifying session is Vladislav Stefanov in the Mercedes-AMG GT3 from Red Zone Racing. There is the Mercedes in the AM Class Championship. It is currently Krastin Stanchev on 496 points, who leads the way quite comfortably. He's well into the top 10 as well in the overall championship. I believe currently 6th in the standings. So Stanchev, with his consistency and also his dedication to showing up each week, has meant that he is well up the standings. And it's a 1-2 for off-track racing in the AM Championship right now. Krastin Stanchev and Milen Milchev, 1-2 in the current point standings. Koenig makes his way out of the pit lane and rejoins the circuit. Of course, Laguna Seca has been reconfigured a couple of times over the years. Was also refreshed quite heavily ahead of MotoGP arriving at the circuit in 2005, which was a response to the ascendancy of the late great Nicky Hayden at the time. But, if you go back past the 1990s into the 70s, 80s, and before either of those decades as well, it was a shorter circuit still and a much faster circuit as well. The kind of technical section of the Andretti hairpin, then through turns 3, 4, and 5. That wasn't there previously. It was always just an infield section, and then in order to extend the track, it was built into a slightly longer configuration with a few more braking zones. You see some onboards of the early IMSA GTP cars going around the original Laguna layout. It's more than a little hair-raising, to say the least. It was 1988 when the current 2.2 mile configuration was really ushered in. Fastest lap time of the day so far then is still belonging to provisional pole sitter Shopov. However, Burgess has been fairly quick, fairly consistently so far. So we'll see whether or not he has a faster time in his arsenal. Currently the next closest to Vladislav Shopov's 121.097. A 121.473 is the current benchmark from Burgess in second place. Brown a 121.505. Only 4 cars under a 1 minute 22 at the moment. The last of them being Philip Koenig. Viktor Varbanov in 5th place is in the 22s. I think we're yet to see the best out of a few of these drivers at this stage of the session. The story of the season really has been keeping an eye on how everyone else can match up to Vladislav Shopov. We expected the likes of Varbanov and Koenig to be perhaps a little bit closer at this stage, although if you speak to Philip Koenig, he really does rate Vladislav Shopov immensely. And of course, the number 1 car, Viktor Varbanov, defending his title, but Vladislav Shopov has been so far clear of everybody else over the last couple of events in particular. There is the number 1 Lamborghini. He really joined last week's server very late indeed. Thought he wasn't going to be present, but then came in, and frankly, he wasn't rewarded for his last-minute entry into the day. It was a fairly difficult event at Spa for Shopov. For Varbanov. Made a few errors, but I think more often than not just got caught up in other people's issues. Goes off onto a flying lap though, hoping to right the wrongs of last weekend. 6th on the grid at the moment. Very deep into the Andretti hairpin though, as we saw there, but that can be a valid racing line, of course, straightening out the corner exit to get some more momentum. But of course, it is quite a short straight that follows the Andretti hairpin. Your order at this stage of the session: Shopov, Koenig, Thomas Marks Burgess. Koenig has only just moved up there to 2nd place as well, so Philip Koenig is improving. Marks Burgess 3rd, Connor Brown 4th, Rostislav Kochev in 5th position. Then it's Varbanov, as we've already mentioned, Julian Janowski, Boyko Shopov, Ventsislav Rachinov and Anton Stratiev, your top 10. The first of the AM class runners is in 18th place. It's the aforementioned Vladislav Stefanov, who we already discussed. He's down in 18th, but still leads among the AM runners and is in fact the only AM driver within the top 20 at the moment. The next AM car is Asen Dramaliev in 21st. Then it's Milchev and Stanchev behind. Just saw a big improvement up the order. I think, was that Robin Skelton moving up to 12th position that I think just disrupted the timing screen a little bit. Joris Ums goes into the top 10 as well. 9th fastest now is Joris Ums. So the Automex Psycho Radios entry, one of the 2 Belgian drivers from that squad, along with Roy Vivek, is making his way up. Does he like this Laguna Seca circuit? Seems to be finding a bit of lap time. The number 10 car on the gravel. Boyko Shopov having some issues then in the JRS machine. Saw Vasil Zhekov going through shot there just a few seconds ago in the Seoul Audi on the grid this weekend. He currently sits 15th fastest. We've seen him pull out some special times in qualifying before and sit well within the top half dozen or so. So perhaps Zhekov has a little more up his sleeve too. But that first lap time from Vladislav Shopov, that first lap that we were watching him on, a 1:21.097, has turned out to be the benchmark. I'm quite surprised that nobody has gone quicker. It was a very good lap time, but you don't typically expect the benchmark to be laid down quite so early in a qualifying session, but it does seem that Shopov got it done early and is now just sitting there and seeing if anyone can beat him. Right now, the answer is looking like a no. There's Janowski heading up the Rayhouse Straight towards the famous corkscrew. Rayhouse Straight, I think, a bit of a misnomer. Is it really a straight? Up the hill towards the corkscrew. Through 10 and 11. Well, this is turn 10. Last corner is turn 11. Quite a straightforward looking corner, just over 90-degree left-hander, but it's quite easy to get that corner wrong if you're an iota too deep on the brakes, or if you butcher your exit out of the turn a little bit. Cannot afford to get it too wrong. It's got a nice amount of runoff on the exit. You can lose yourself a good few tenths if you get the turn wrong. Alexander Nikolov Jr. in the big BMW M4 GT3 heads back out onto the circuit for one last bid. Less than 4 minutes left in the session. Of course, once the clock hits 20, that's it. The session ends. So he won't have too many opportunities to make something happen. Nikolov Jr. in the negative Delta Academy entry, the 120 car. Here's Bozidar Andreev with the BULERS X Mantai colours on that car, the Rodopa Racing Team entry. Into pit lane he comes, currently just 19th fastest for Andreev. Right on board with Roman Skelton into the final corner. Takes a deep line through the turn, I think, trying to straighten out the exit there to get one last flying lap in and maybe avoid some of the traffic that was up ahead. There's Stratiev. Behind Stratiev as well is Koenig. Everyone at the sharp end. I think Marks Burgess might be just ahead of Stratiev as well. These three drivers all trying to find a little bit more out of their Porsche. Shopov has proven that there's more to find, but they're not quite able to get there. Of course, our next event, our next destination, our season finale in 2 weeks' time is at Suzuka as well. Another very challenging, very committed circuit where you cannot afford to make errors. And so if Shopov likes this track, I have to believe he might well like Suzuka as well. So this does not bode well, this current qualifying situation for his championship competition. Here is Sampson. Bit wide there onto the Rayhouse Straight. Deep on the brakes, over the crest of the hill, into the corkscrew. Very difficult braking point to sight. Usually when you're braking, you want to be able to see the corner you're braking for, and well, that's not the case at Laguna Seca when it comes to the corkscrew. Svetanov on a decent lap. He currently sits just outside the top 10 in 12th position. Could this lap time put him into the top 10? It's not looking like a personal best sort of lap, but we'll follow it across the line and see. Is Is it an improvement? The answer is no. And there's only 30 seconds left now for any late markers to be thrown down. Julian Janowski, 8th fastest at the moment. Anton Stratiev has moved up to 5th position, which is why this man is a little bit further down. Janowski doesn't improve. Thomas Marks Burgess does improve, goes 2nd fastest. A late dive up the order onto the front row of the grid then for Thomas Marks Burgess as the session comes to a close. Burgess, at the last possible moment, makes it Impulse Racing Porsche 1-2 on the grid for this race. It's an all-Impulse Porsche front row then. Philip Koenig demoted to 3rd place right at the end behind Vladislav Shopov and Thomas Marks Burgess. Connor Brown will join Koenig on row 2. Anton Stratiev 5th fastest alongside Rostislav Kochev. Viktor Varbanov taking 7th in that session. He will line up alongside Julian Janowski on row 4. Jordanin Svetanov in 9th place, Boyko Shopov in 10th position. Then it's Joris Ums in 11th place, Ventsislav Rachinov in 12th, Roban Skelton 13th, Chris Vrasilyov in 14th place, Vasil Zhekov couldn't do any better than 15th, but we'll see if he can work his way into the top 10. Vladislav Stefanov in 16th place, Roy Vivek in 17th, and Alexander Nikolov in 18th position. Bozidar Andreev 19th, 20th place, Alexander Sakov, Alexander Nikolov Jr. in 21st alongside Asendra Maliev, Milen Milchev 23rd, Krastin Stanchev in 24th place, and 3 BMWs from off-track racing in a row as Vladimir Mavrodiev is 25th. Martin MJ Sampson in 26th position alongside Charles Kellyman and Lazar Katzarski. Ivelo Dimitrov 29th, Dimitar Palauzov in 30th. Saravimov and Dimitrov rounding out our 32 cars that are taking the start here as we get ready to go racing in the SimGear GT3 Premier League on iRacing, organised, of course, by BULERS. Looks like we've got a few cars missing at the moment as everybody makes their way into the race. They're all popping up now, so I think we're about to go on the formation lap. Of course, this first race, 20 minutes in duration. No need to consider the potential of pit stops or anything like that. However, this race does have widespread consequences for the 40-minute race that follows, as the top 10 from this race will be reversed to make up the grid for race 2. So that means the driver that finishes 10th in this race will be on pole position for race number 2. And of course, if you are someone just outside that top 10, if you're a Rachinov, a Joris Ums, a Vasil Zhekov perhaps, you look at that top 10 up ahead of you, and if you can just about squeak it into 9th or 10th position, of course you then find yourself on the front row for race 2, so it creates some very exciting racing further down the order as well as at the front. In the AM class, Vladislav Stefanov will be our pole sitter, as it were, down there in the mid-teens in the Red Zone Racing Mercedes AMG GT3, the only Mercedes on the grid this weekend. The Porsches looking strong here at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Porsches have historically run very well here in the American Le Mans Series and then the IMSA competition that followed thereafter. That classic wheel-to-wheel duel in 2009 in the American Le Mans Series with the Corvettes going up against the Flying Lizard Porsches. Even before that, some great duels with Maserati holding off Aston Martin, Corvette, and even Celine in the GT1 class back in 2005. This is a circuit that's often spectacular to watch GT cars in and even more spectacular to drive them. But now we can focus on the driving. Now, is the number 2 car there? I'm not seeing the number 2. I'm not seeing Vladislav Shopov. Is he there? I'm not so sure he is. We're going racing nonetheless. We are underway and racing in the SimGear GT3 Premier League, but we've got a spin almost immediately. 2, 3, 4 cars, all sorts of bedlam before they even get to the first braking zone. Vladislav Shopov has joined the race from the pit lane. I don't know why Shopov didn't get started, but he was not on that formation lap, and it's Philip Koenig that leads the way. However, a number of drivers involved in that incident further back. Alexander Tsakov, Chris Vasiliov, Joris Ums, unfortunately, who was just outside the top 10, Nikolov Jr., Boyko Shopov, and indeed Vladislav Stefanov, who was, of course, the AM pole sitter. He hasn't got the opportunity to capitalise on that, though, because he is now running at the back of the field. Milen Milchev, then, is your AM class leader, and your overall leader is Philip Koenig. Koenig leads the way from Marks Burgess, from Stratiev, from Viktor Varbanov, Connor Brown, and Julian Janowski. That's your top half dozen at the moment. But for how long will that last? Not long if the 23 car has anything to do with it. Robin Skelton, he made up some places in the bedlam on lap number 1, sits in the top 10 now in 9th place, and is studying the rear of Iordanin Svetanov. I had a feeling that oh, well, we get a look here at what happened. It just looked like simultaneous spins and different incidents, really. It just looked like everyone getting a little bit tangled up with each other, a couple of easy mistakes made, and well, the net result was all of this. It was the Shopov number 10 car that ended up in the spin initially, and then the Joris Ums car got tagged as he barreled down the hill. I think Vivek was caught up in that as well. It was just a very messy start to the race, wasn't it? The 115 car got onto the gravel and the grass as well. Fired across the front end of a number of the different drivers out there. Nikolov Jr. getting rather cruelly tagged in amongst all that as well. Well, certainly a dramatic start to the race then. But for Philip Koenig, he is our race leader, albeit he is under a lot of pressure from Thomas Marks Burgess. The question remains, what has happened to Vladislav Shopov? He is shown on my screen as running, but he's well down the order. I don't know what happened with Shopov, that he wasn't seemingly able to take the start at the right time. Very strange moments that he is not taking that pole position. While I was afraid looking at some stuff on my screen, Thomas Marks Burgess is through into the race lead. My apologies for missing that. My screen is having a little bit of a moment, but I've just got it back live, and Burgess is through into the race lead. So Koenig has been demoted. I didn't see quite how that happened, but Koenig losing out on the race lead. Stratiev, Brown, Janowski, 3rd, 4th and 5th. They'll be hoping to maybe close in. There's a big gap between 5th and 6th place, though. Or rather 4th and 5th place, because Janowski is leading a pack of cars here, being pursued directly by Rostislav Kochev, who looks to the inside at turn 9, which is always brave. Brainy curve. And then they have to worry about Viktor Varbanov behind. Varbanov will be very keen to make his way into the top 5. We've had a spin further back there. Was that Robin Skelton? I think it might just have been, unfortunately. Robin Skelton having a spin. Get a replay here down at the corkscrew, and that was not a good moment at all for one of the Automech Psycho Radios Ferraris. That was Charles Kellyman, I think. It's actually been a very good start for the sister car. Martin M.J. Sampson currently sitting in 11th place. And here's a look back at, Skelton's very brave dive at the last corner. And, well, unfortunately, he ended up eating the result of that. We had a car just off track there a little bit. Was that Janowski? Yes, it was. Janowski losing out there to Kochev for 5th position, and now Varbanov senses an opportunity from 7th place. And just to say as well, Vladislav Shopov is now showing up on my screen in 11th place. I thought I saw him taking the start of the race from the pit lane, so he did do that. Vladislav Shopov is almost back in the top 10 already. Crazy. So Shopov running nicely, as is Varbanov, but he's trying to find his way past Janowski here. He'll be hoping Janowski makes it easy for him with another slip-up, but I don't see that coming. Sampson allows Skelton through, and there's a look to the inside from the 28 car, Serafimov. Serafimov dives to the inside of Boyko Shopov there, also looking to try and get past the Ferrari of Kaczarski, and does so. Sweeps around the outside. We've got an errant Lamborghini. Palauzov having a moment. Of course, some of the drivers who got caught up in that incident are now having to work their way through drivers that would normally be behind them. And we see there Serafimov just making up positions hand over fist. He's up to 16th place, carving his way through. But a few of the drivers who used their survival instincts to get through turn 1 are having a very good race. High up the order, Palauzov currently second in the AM class, incidentally. Just being overtaken by Boyko Shopov, who sits within the pro categorization. But yeah, Dimitar Palauzov is currently second in the AM class, but right behind him is Lazar Kaczarski. Kaczarski pressuring him for second in the AM class. Your leader in AM is Milen Milchev in the off-track racing BMW M4 GT3. Seven and a half minutes of this race are in the books, and Connor Brown just fighting there with Anton Stratiev. Meanwhile, we take a look back to Lazar Kaczarski, who's now losing out a little bit there. Kaczarski falling down to 21st place. That's Plamen Dimitrov, who's just gotten ahead of him, and Ivalo Dimitrov just before that as well. So Kaczarski falling out of the top 20 suddenly. Julian Janowski has just dropped back another position as Viktor Varbanov has gotten through, and I think we're riding on board with Varbanov at the moment. I think it was almost a carbon copy for Janowski of what happened to him a couple of laps ago, just going too wide through the fast left-hand flick onto the Rahal straight. That corner, of course, very tight, but also with a lot of camber. A difficult corner to get right at the best of times, let alone when you're under immense pressure from someone like Varbanov. Remember, I alluded to Vasil Zhekov potentially wanting to work his way into the top 10, wanting to try and take advantage of that top 10 reverse format in the second race. Well, he's currently in 9th position. Currently on course, though, for pole with the top 10 reverse is Iordan and Svetanov. So Svetanov in 10th position, Vasil Zhekov in 9th. If they finish there, they will, of course, be our front row for race number 2. Here is the 22, Connor Brown pursuing Anton Stratiev. Philip Koenig, meanwhile, just ahead of them in second place. Again, I do apologise for missing exactly what happened between Koenig and Burgess. Hopefully it was just a clean move, but I did miss that with a little bit of a moment for the tech in my commentary box. Meanwhile, getting a look back here to the 32 Porsche, the Automech Psycho Radios entry of Joris Ums, and carried a bit too much speed through the first element of the corkscrew. Rear end let go, and the net result is a very long way round the infamous drop downhill. And there you see the 116 Ferrari of Dimitrov having a little bit of a spin as well. Certainly a circuit that challenges you. You need to have an optimized setup. Third and fourth place go through. Great battle between Stratiev and Brown. Rachinov pursuing Janovsky. So Janovsky having resumed sixth place. He was behind Varbanov, but Janovsky's now back up to sixth position. So Rachinov and Varbanov are pursuing Julian Janovsky. There's been some moving and shaking further back as well. Vladislav Shopov is now into the top 10, so he's on the back of this queue and is now up to 10th position. And it looked to me as though Svetanov may have been having some connection issues as well as making a bit of an error. There is Varbanov then. Sorry, there is... yes, there is Varbanov just ahead of Zhekov in 8th and 9th position. And Vladislav Shopov now in 10th position. We get a look at Varbanov slowing up to allow those cars by. Now, we saw the tail end of Varbanov getting past Janovsky, and I just wonder if he felt that Janovsky was unfairly treated. Maybe we only saw the back end of the incident. Maybe Varbanov was a bit physical with Janovsky, and that's why he let him through. Varbanov is a very respectful driver, so I suspect that if he's let up the throttle like that, it might be for that reason, but it might have also been a slowdown penalty. I'm not sure which applies, but either way, whether it was penalisation or self-penalisation, he's got to do it all again, and a good run up the Rayhouse straight will do that. A bit wide there from Ratchov, and Varbanov strikes, moves back up into 7th position, just about gets it stopped for the corkscrew, but had to fight the car there on the apex downhill into the corkscrew. "12 minutes and 35 seconds of this race in the book. It will go 20 minutes. And at the moment, Anton Stratiev is under a lot of pressure, in fact, for the race lead. Just 2/10 between Stratiev and Connor Brown at the front of the order. Vladislav Shopov, meanwhile, dives to the inside of Vasil Zhekov for 9th position. I don't think Zhekov will mind being 10th. As if he ends up in 11th, that he won't be happy about. But Stratiev is under a lot of pressure at the front of the field by the looks of it. The two Impulse Racing cars of Connor Brown and Thomas Marks Burgess are together with Stratiev, and that means that Philip Koenig, incidentally, has now been dropped down to 4th position. So Koenig outside the podium places now. This is the battle for 5th downwards, though, with Rostislav Kochev leading Janovsky, leading Varbanov. We're just seeing, I think, Vladislav Shopov going for P7 there as we take a look at Thomas Marks Burgess getting really caught up there by a back marker. It was a very strange moment, wasn't it? And that has allowed Anton Stratiev through. And it's all changing at the front of the order. Oh, a big moment, a big moment. Varbanov sending the Porsche of Janovsky into a spin there. And I think Varbanov has waited up to allow him through, but that changes the complexion of the race significantly. You can see damage on Vladislav Shopov's car as well. What's that done to the order? Well, it's put Rostislav Kochev into 5th. Rachinov and Shopov are fighting it out for 7th place now. I really want to see what's going on at the front of the pack, because that's shuffling up as well. Julian Janovsky just getting tagged out of the corner. I think had less momentum than Viktor Varbanov anticipated, and the net result was that collision. Your order then, with less than 5 or just over 5 minutes of this race to go, is Anton Stratiev in the lead. Thomas Marks Burgess second, Connor Brown third, Philip Koenig in fourth place. There is your top 4 altogether. Marks Burgess, of course, only down in second place because of that moment we saw on screen with the Castrol Ferrari. The collision between the two of them is the reason that he's down to second place. He will be very keen indeed to regain that lead. Philip Koenig will be watching on with interest as well behind Connor Brown. There's a big gap between Koenig and Kochev in 5th place, about 4 seconds, and then there's a lot more than that, something more like 11 seconds between Kochev and this battle for 6th place. So Ventsislav Rachinov in 6th position with that big queue behind him. Burgess looking to the inside. That's a very bold move into the left-hander. Gets it done. And Stratiev still with him, though, as they head up towards the incline section of the circuit. And who's going to come out on top of it? It is going to be Thomas Marks Burgess. The inside line helps a lot there, and he gets through into the lead, and Connor Brown may follow him to make it an Impulse Racing 1-2, but Stratiev just about keeping to the inside at Corkscrew, but does have to yield to Connor Brown. Stratiev goes from the lead to third in a matter of moments, and he may not even be there for long because Philip Koenig is now right with him also. That just shows when the dam breaks, it tends to fall pretty quickly. And sure enough, Anton Stratiev demoted to third place. Thomas Marks Burgess resumes his lead. Connor Brown in second, Stratiev third, Koenig and Kochev your top 5. Top 4 currently split by 1.7 seconds. So very close quarters racing at the front. All of that side-by-side action on that lap has also brought Kochev closer to the rear of Koenig as well. So Kochev just in the back of shot there in the blue and green machine. He could yet be a factor. Speaking of blue and green machines, Roban Skelton was trying to have a go there at Vasil Zhekov. Zhekov now in 9th place, which means that Janovsky is down in 11th. Janovsky, of course, after his tag from Viktor Varbanov is well down the order. Speaking of Viktor Varbanov, he is out of the race seemingly, 25th now and in the pit lane. So Viktor Varbanov, what's happened to him? Varbanov has ended up in the pit lane. You can see the damage on the Audi up ahead. Vasil Zhekov's car is looking distinctly second hand, but in spite of it all, he's still in the top 10. He's still in 9th place. And he's having this great fight now with Roban Skelton. Skelton, who's certainly looking eager. We've seen a couple of audacious dives at the last turn from Skelton. Will we see another one here on Vasil Zhekov? Zhekov actually just lets him through there. I wonder if that's looking in the rearview mirrors, realising that nobody else is anywhere near them, and saying, you know what, I want pole position, mate. Go through if you like. Ivo Serafimov makes his way past AM-class leader Milen Milchev, and Boyko Shopov tries to follow him through as well. I don't think Milchev will be too concerned with this because, of course, he is running in the AM-class. These two cars are running in Pro, and Milchev is well clear among the AM runners at the moment, but he's still giving the Porsches a good contest in the big BMW M4 GT3. Does, however, fall behind them both. Getting a replay here of Roy Vervaeke having a moment. In fact, just behind as well, Velo Dimitrov having a bit of a moment by the looks of it. But Vervaeke just losing it there into the final corner. Bit of race of attrition, this. And it's a race that's only got 40 seconds left on the clock. Our leader has crossed the line to start the final lap then. Burgess and Brown looking to make it another 1-2 in the Impulse Racing camp. Koenig in 4th position. Then it's Rostislav Kochev in 5th place. Vladislav Shopov rounding out our top half dozen, but of course the all-important 9th and 10th places are front row for the 40-minute pit stop race. Currently, Skelton and Jekov, these guys, Burgess, Brown, Stratiev, Koenig will have it all to do in the 40-minute pit stop race. Traditionally, they've shown that they can climb through the order. Koenig, I think, will be a little bit disappointed to end up finishing off the podium, but he's a very humble driver. Anything he can try and pick up on in the subsequent 10 minutes between the races, I'm sure he'll do so. But for Thomas Marks Burgess, despite a little setback, a collision with another car further back, he has had a pretty exemplary race, and the checkered flag waits for him now. It is Thomas Marks Burgess who flashes the headlights, crosses the line, and wins the race. Connor Brown makes it an Impulse Racing 1-2. Anton Stratiev rounding out the podium. A good race from the Jekov Rally School driver ahead of Koenig. Rostislav Kochev will be next to cross the line among the cars on the lead lap. There he goes. In fact, he's already crossed the line. Vladislav Shopov, who started from the pit lane, lest we forget, he is 6th on the grid. That could be or 6th in the race. That means 4th on the grid for the 40-minute pit stop race. That could be very useful for him after starting from pit lane. I still don't know exactly what happened there. Ventsislav Rachinov in 7th, Svetanov in 8th, Skelton and Vasil Zhekov rounding out our top 10. Here is a battle further back between Alexander Nikolov Sr. and Ivelo Dimitrov. Milen Milchev, meanwhile, just crossing the line to win the AM class. That's already across the line, I believe. And it does look like Ivelo Dimitrov is going to end up staying behind Nikolov Sr. But Milchev winning in AM. Charles Kellyman 2nd in AM. That's a really good effort, actually, from Charles Kellyman. A very good result for him. And Plaman Dimitrov rounding out the AM class podium as well. So a bit of an unexpected, potentially, AM top 3. Milchev for off-track racing winning an AM is not that big of a shock. But with all of that drama that happened in the mid-pack on the run to turn 1, a few unexpected results in there. Thomas Marks Burgess wins the race then ahead of Connor Brown, 2nd place. Anton Stratiev in 3rd. Philip Koenig in 4th. Rostislav Kochev in 5th. Vladislav Shopov in 6th place. Rachinov and Svetanov in 7th and 8th. Skelton and Vasil Zhekov rounding out your top 10 ahead of Janovsky, Sampson and Serafimov. Boyko Shopov finishing just ahead of AM class winner Milen Milchev. Charles Kellyman in 16th. Joris Ums in 17th place. And Plamen Dimitrov in 18th position. 19th place going to Alexander Nikolov. Ivelo Dimitrov in 20th. 21st, Alexander Sakov. Lazar Kaczarski in 22nd. Dimitar Palauzov in 23rd. Vladimir Mavrodiev in 24th place. Viktor Varbanov in 25th. Bozidar Andreev in 26th place. Krastin Stanchev in 27th. Vivek Dramaliev, Vasiliov, Stefanov and Nikolov rounding out the 32-car order, although everyone from about Varbanov down did in fact not take the checkered flag. Curious to know what happened there with Varbanov. He did have a few collisions and ended up withdrawing from the race there into pit lane. A lot of damaged cars and a lot of drama in our first race of the day. Let's see what happens in the 40-minute pit stop race after some messages from our commercial partners. Okay then, time for the big one, the 40-minute pit stop race here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna, Seca. And it is Vasil Zhekov who has a pole position opportunity once again. He's already had a podium from a pole this season. Let's see if he can do it again. Roman Skelton alongside him. Iordanin Svetanov and Ventsislav Rachinov in 3rd and 4th place. Then it's Vladislav Shopov in good position, starting from the pit lane and taking 6th earlier. That means he's 5th on the grid now. Rostislav Kochev in 6th place. Philip Koenig in P7. Then it's Anton Stratiev, Connor Brown and Thomas Marks Burgess bringing us down to 10th place. Our winner, of course, from the first race a few moments ago. Julian Janovsky missed out on the top 10. He starts 11th position alongside Martin M.J. Sampson. Boyko Shopov 13th. Ivo Serafimov in 14th place. Ivo Serafimov 13th. Boyko Shopov in 14th. Milen Milchev in 15th place. Charles Kellyman in 16th, and it's Yoris Ums and Dimitrov in 17th and 18th. Alexander Nikolov and Ivalo Dimitrov down to 20th place. Alexander Sakov in 21st. Lazar Kaczarski 22nd. Palauzov and Mavrodiev in 23rd and 24th. Viktor Varbanov hopefully is there. He will be starting from 25th on the grid, and I don't see Varbanov there, actually. But nonetheless, we continue down the grid. Bozdar Andreev, 26th. Stanchev, 27th. Roy Vivek in 28th. Then it's Dramaliev, Vrasilyov, Stefanov, and Nikolov Jr. Rounding out the 20 cars, 32 cars down the grid. And indeed, Viktor Varbanov is not currently listed. So I think Varbanov may have pulled the plug on this second race, unfortunately. He's had 2 fairly torrid events in a row, sadly, Viktor Varbanov. Will still be 3rd in the championship, I think, going into the finale, but he's going to be a long way back from Koenig and from our championship leader, Vladislav Shopov. So then, first race was full of drama. Even before we even really got to a braking zone, there was drama ongoing on the track, collisions and incidents and accidents. Now, usually the sprint race is calm and the feature race is when it all kicks off. So, well, let's hope that wasn't everyone's idea of calm in that first race, because if so, we're in for a stressful time. Vasil Zhekov is our pole sitter then. He is alongside Roman Skelton at the front of the order. Zhekov Rally School, represented by Zhekov himself, and Roman Skelton for the Zhekov Rally team, joining him on the front row. We are racing then in the 40-minute feature. We are underway. And let's see if everyone can get through the Andretti hairpin this time without too much issue. It looks like everybody's picking their way through quite nicely. But Vasil Zhekov is our race leader. Zhekov manages the start nicely from the inside of the front row. One of the Ferraris further back taking the run-off road. And I think Viktor Varbanov is now out there, if I'm not mistaken. He's showing up as on the circuit on my timing and scoring. I hope that's accurate. It would be good to see Viktor out there, but I don't know if that's the case. Nonetheless, we see they're looking to the inside potentially. Is that Svetanov? Yes, it is. Iordan and Svetanov trying to find a way through. "32 cars. Best part of 16,000 brake horsepower on this racing circuit. The famous Laguna Seca, and it is Vasil Zhekov, a famous name within Bulgarian motorsport, the Zhekov family name at the top of the sheets, as it so often is on the rally stages. There's Koenig in 7th position. He's studying the rear of Rostislav Kochev. Ventsislav Rachinov in 5th position. Koenig tries to go around the outside here of that Stratiev that he's alongside. Yes, it is. And Very close quarters racing. Koenig and Stratiev were fighting if out. In fact, no, that was Rostislav Kochev losing out to Koenig. So Koenig is now in 6th position. Philip Koenig on the way up the field then. It's Vasil Zhekov with the clear view at the front of the order. Robin Skelton with anything but a clear view, with the front end of the Audi taunting him through the windscreen. Skelton, we saw in the first race, not immune to making some big moves. And on a few occasions, he certainly made them pay off. So let's see if Skelton can make some offensive maneuvers. He will have seen exactly how good Svetanov can be. He will know Vladislav Shopov is arguably the quickest driver in the series right now. So there's a lot of competition behind Skelton. And he will see it as, well, the quicker I can get past into the lead, the less time I'm in the direct firing line of some of those drivers behind me. Rostislav Kochev in P7, following Koenig as Koenig starts to study the rear of Ventsislav Rachinov, the German sim racing driver, the Bulgarian-based driver, who, of course, has some German stock in his heritage. Vladislav Shopov to the inside line there. That's a bold move, and it's one that Jordanin Svetanov helps there by not making too big of a commitment to the inside line. And sure enough, I believe Vladislav Shopov has gotten through there into 3rd place. Yes, he has. Vladislav Shopov with a nice maneuver there. Svetanov flashing the lights. I don't know if he was delighted with everything that happened there, but you see Vladislav Shopov seemingly having some connection issues once again as well. Let's hope that doesn't affect him or his race or the race of others too much. Kochev studying as 6th and 5th place goes side by side. Koenig now ahead of Ventsislav Rachinov. Held it very nicely around the outside of turn 10. That's always a bold maneuver. And Koenig made it work for him, and Rostislav Kochev follows him through as well. To confirm, Viktor Varbanov is not racing, so sadly only the 31 cars taking the start. There is Connor Brown in 9th position. He's not really made any headway yet, nor has Thomas Marks Burgess behind. So the 2 Impulse Racing cars that finished 1 and 2 in the earlier race are yet to really make any moves. We just saw there, though, Marks Burgess going past Connor Brown. I wonder whether that was coordinated or whether it was a legitimate move. Certainly, Marks Burgess had more speed coming out of the corner, and Skelton has gotten past Vasil Zhekov, hasn't he? Vasil Zhekov is down to 2nd position. So Zhekov has lost out on the race lead. I don't think we saw that on the live pictures, but Zhekov has lost out to Robin Skelton. Skelton then is our leader. Zhekov now in 2nd, and the occasionally teleporting Vladislav Shopov is in 3rd position, right on the back of the Audi. Over the crest of the hill they go, down towards the Andretti hairpin. And that looks fairly easy for Shopov. Had a nose ahead. Zhekov there a little bit sideways in the mid-corner. Looks to me as though Vladislav Shopov is through. Yes, he is. So Shopov moves up to 2nd place. Philip Koenig in 4th position will be looking to try and get into the podium positions next at the expense of Vasil Zhekov. But Zhekov looking to try and fight back here. Carried a bit too much momentum, though, through there. Ended up with a wheel on the dirt, and that could open up the door to Philip Koenig. Koenig on his inside line for 3rd position. I think Zhekov is going to fall down to 4th place here. Koenig with the high ground, with the inside line, and a nose ahead. Makes it look fairly academic on his move up into 3rd place. But can Zhekov try and fire back on the approach to the corkscrew? They kind of held each other up through that sequence of bends, but Koenig does solidify his claim to 3rd place then definitively as they go through the corkscrew. There is Svetanov all over the rear of Rostislav Kochev. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th all in one long queue. You just saw Svetanov there getting wheels on the dirt. He has to be very careful about that going forward. If you try and rotate a Porsche into the corner while half of the car is on the dirt, more often than not, the rear is going to choose its own adventure. Thomas Marks Burgess to the inside of Anton Stratiev for 8th position, and it looks like Burgess has got it done there. Very nicely driven. Again, I do apologise if you saw how Robin Skelton got through, but I certainly missed that. Skelton, nonetheless, is our race leader then for Jekov Rally Team. And what a thrill that must be for him. Skelton leading the way. I don't remember Robin Skelton leading, certainly this season. So well up the field, but he's got Vladislav Shopov closing in on him. And it must be said, closing in on him quite quickly at the moment. I'm watching the gap shrink down to 1.1 seconds to 0.6 in the space of about 20 seconds. So it doesn't look like it's going to be long before Robin Skelton is under pressure for the race lead. And that is something that we'll hopefully get to keep an eye on before too long. Svetanov and Marks Burgess, though, side by side at the moment. Thomas Marks Burgess trying to hold on around the outside at turn 10. We saw Koenig do it, but Marks Burgess, I think, deciding discretion is the better part of valor. Instead has the inside line for the final bend. Doesn't quite get the same delivery out of the corner, though, as Venceslav Rachinov. Rachinov remains in 7th place, but Marks Burgess surely sizing up a move for the lead here, a move for 7th here, looking to the inside line for the Andretti hairpin and gets it done very nicely there, Thomas Marks Burgess. But look at the lead gap. Skelton and Shopov are on top of each other at the moment. That gap was a second less than a lap ago. So Robin Skelton could be about to lose out here to Vladislav Shopov. Shopov looks to the inside line, but to his credit, Robin Skelton does a good job of staying composed, isn't distracted by Shopov darting around behind him. Rostislav Kochev and Vasil Zhekov are getting into it behind, and indeed Kochev has gotten past Vasil Zhekov for P4. Iodanin Svetanov is now looking to maybe find his way by also. The Audi looking a little bit squirrely there over the crest of the hill under braking. Where are Skelton and Shopov, though, because they are still set by almost no time. Thomas Marks Burgess getting to the inside of Svetanov. That's a move for 6th place. And Robin Skelton still leads the way by about 1/10 of a second as they come across the start-finish line in the battle for the lead. Now, this could happen really at any point. And, of course, for Vladislav Shopov, he will be aware that he's running against the clock here because Koenig is right with them as well and closing in. He goes to the inside line, though, and Vladislav Shopov makes it work. Shopov to the inside and into the race lead. Oh, and Vasil Zhekov in a spin at the front of the long queue of Porsches. And unfortunately, Vasil Zhekov out of the top 10 there. That car does not like the Andretti hairpin by the looks of it. And the net result is Vasil Zhekov all the way down to 15th place. We're 10 minutes into this race and we've scarcely mentioned the AM battle. I'll go through that in a moment, though. Just taking a look at Vasil Zhekov. Carried a lot of speed into the first element of the Andretti hairpin. The rear was already letting go on turn-in. And just slowly but surely, the car cried enough. The rear axle cried enough for Vasil Zhekov. Milen Milchev then is your AM class leader. He runs 16th overall at the moment. He's a little ahead of Plamen Dimitrov, a couple of seconds clear of Dimitrov. And then behind him is Vladimir Mavrodiev. That's your top 3 then in the AM class. Your order, though, at the front, Vladislav Shopov, now your race leader. Robin Skelton under increasing scrutiny now from Philip Koenig as well in the battle for 2nd place. All Porsches in the top 5. Behind Koenig it is Kochev and then Thomas Marks Burgess, who's making good progress. Speaking of progress, Julian Janowski dives to the inside there and progress without compromise there, I would call that, from Janowski. But he then vanishes away briefly. Connection issues a little bit there for him. He just got past, though, Iodanin Svetanov. This is the battle for 8th, 9th, 10th position. Connor Brown still down there in 10th place, while his Impulse Racing colleague, Thomas Marks Burgess, has made up good progress from 9th on the grid, or from 10th on the grid, I should say. Connor Brown has not quite managed the same thing. Here's Vladislav Shopov now leading by 2.4 seconds. He's already built a lovely lead. As for Robin Skelton, he is under a lot of pressure from Philip Koenig now. Koenig just a couple of tenths back, and as we had a lap ago, Robin Skelton comes into the Andretti hairpin with Koenig right on his bumper. Of course, Vladislav Shopov got through down there at Andretti a couple of laps ago, and now Philip Koenig wants to do the same, but Skelton holding his own, doing a very good job up there at the sharp end, but every moment that he's kind of in the way of Philip Koenig's progress, that's making the second half of the race a harder prospect for Koenig. But knowing Philip from our various discussions in the post-race press conferences, I imagine he will underplay his chances of closing in on Vladislav Shopov anyway. He's very understated, is Philip Koenig. Rostislav Kochev then in 4th place. 5th place is Burgess. 6th place is Rachinov. And we're looking back further back into the field at Chris Vrasilyov in 13th place. Negative delta by Madness Driver. He's just pursuing Ivo Serafimov at the moment for the Jekov Rally team. And then just behind them is Martin M.J. Sampson in 13th, who once again in that Ferrari for Automex Psycho Radios is having a very good race. He seems to be gelling nicely with the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Oh, and a bit of a tap there from the rear of Svetanov to Julian Janowski. Side-by-side scenario then for 8th and 9th place. Two dented Porsches side-by-side. And it looks like Janowski will have the nose ahead into Andretti hairpin. That should be 8th position for him, and it is. But also getting involved with that and moving up to 9th place is Boyko Shopov. Boyko Shopov with a nice move there. Got himself past Connor Brown and Iordanin Svetanov in one fell swoop. So Connor Brown briefly down to 10th place. He now 11th place, sorry. He now goes around the outside of Svetanov. And Svetanov demoted outside the top 10. It's all getting very close here. Vrasilyov and Serafimov also trying to make it 3 wide with Iordanin Svetanov. Svetanov now in 11th place with Chris Vrasilyov, his negative delta by Madness teammate just behind him. Ivo Serafimov following them. They're being pursued as well by Sampson and the recovering Vasil Zhekov. Zhekov has just moved up into 14th there in the back of shot as well. So Zhekov trying to recover his way back up to the top 10, of course, after his moments earlier on. And in fact, dropping down there is Iordanin Svetanov. I wonder if he's had a slowdown penalty there. He drops down to 15th place then. Zhekov back up to 13th. Here's your battle for second place. Still no movement, still no opportunity for Koenig to find his way by. And the opportunity for Vladislav Shopov to build a cushion is one that he's taking gainfully. 4.4 seconds clear of this scrap at the moment. And, oh dear, Chris Vrasilyov there with a bit of a spin. I think he may have spun again on the recovery there. What happened? He was looking to the inside of Ivo Serafimov. And, yeah, just tapped the rear of his fellow Porsche. And that was enough to unsettle himself. Vrasilyov then drops down the order. And now sits in 17th place behind, currently, Plamen Dimitrov. And Dimitrov, of course, is trying to chase after the man in the BMW up ahead, Milan Milchev, who leads in the AM class. So, effectively, what Vrasilyov has done is put himself in the firing line of the AM class battle. There is Connor Brown in 10th position. He comes into the pit lane. That is a very surprising move. A pit stop this early in the race. We usually have to go well over the 20-minute mark to see a pit stop happen. Is this Connor Brown trying to deviate his strategy, trying to find some clear space and maybe doing an undercut, classic Formula One style in the refueling era? Of course, he's going to end up rejoining the race in amongst the kind of mid-pack of the AM class, although I think he might be coming back out into some fairly open track, so that could be good news for Connor Brown. In fact, he needs to get out in front of that queue of cars, really, for this to work for him. He's going to need to get the throttle down. He does so. That is really good news for Connor Brown, that he came back out there 20th place ahead of those cars behind him, because if he'd ended up in that queue, he would have lost a lot of time. Thomas Marks Burgess still following on in 5th place, with Rostislav Kochev just ahead of him. Still no move made from Koenig to Skelton in the battle for 2nd place. You can see them up ahead as well. But Vladislav Shopov, after not being able to capitalise on his pole position in the first race, hopefully we do get an opportunity to ask him before the end of the broadcast why he didn't take the race start from pole. But he is in the lead now, having worked his way up to 6th in race 1 from a pit lane start. Skelton and Koenig were on screen there. There's Lazar Kaczarski in 22nd place. 21st place, make that, as we just saw there. Joris Ooms in a spin in the back of shots, having a moment and dropping himself down the order a little further. Philip Koenig with a very good run up the Rahal straight this time. He's got the inside line for the corkscrew. Robin Skelton, though, later on the brakes, by the looks of it, tries to squeeze Koenig out of the inside line. Very good defensive driving there from Robin Skelton. Skelton is doing a very good job here of holding on to this opportunity to finish in the podium. His pace isn't bad by any means, and he's defending very well indeed. There's Dramaliev's car, which is certainly not going to make it through its next inspection. MOT fail incoming for that car. This was Joris Ooms having the moment that I think we saw on screen. Just turned in too early, caught that sausage curb, and the rear end of the car said, okay, see you later. Koenig to the inside line at turn 3. Can't get it done there. Under the bridge, under the Firestone Bridge they go, and Koenig is really having to work hard here. Robin Skelton is racing him very fair, but racing him very hard as well. Thomas Marks Burgess trying to find his way around the outside here of Rostislav Kochev. Can do it around the outside at that corner, certainly. There's a lot of camber to use there, but he couldn't get it done. Kochev, therefore, remains in a 4th place. Here comes Thomas Marks Burgess, though, up the hill. Doesn't get a great run out of the corner. And up ahead, Philip Koenig is through into 2nd place. Koenig has gotten through into P2. We just saw that, once again, almost a carbon copy of the move a lap ago, but this time it was successful. Koenig once again carrying more speed up the hill towards the corkscrew, and he is now through into 2nd place, and already, now that he's been released, is already over a second clear of Robin Skelton. So Koenig definitely has the pace. Question is, does he have the pace to try and close in on Vladislav Shopov, who is now some 8 seconds clear at the front of the pack. Iordan and Svetanov down outside the top 10 now. Another sighting of Martin MJ Sampson, who again, 12th position. A really good run from Sampson, who has sometimes been fighting outside the top 20, but he's been on really good form lately, now running in 12th position. I think Joris Ooms just exiting the pit lane a lap down ahead of them. That is indeed Joris in the Automex Psycho Radios Porsche. The other Automex Psycho Radios entry, the Ferrari of Sampson, goes past Ooms. But here comes Svetanov. Nice move to the inside line there. We are approaching the pit window as well. I would suggest it won't be long before we start to see some pit stops here. Thomas Marks Burgess in that 5th position at the moment, and I think Rachinov may have just gone into the pit lane. So I think we are starting to see some drivers make that pit stop. Kochev under fire once again from Burgess, who looks to the inside at Andretti. Very nicely done late on the brakes there, but Kochev with the inside line into the following corner manages to hold on. They'll still be side by side, I think, as they come under the Firestone Bridge. Great side-by-side racing from both parties. Kochev and Burgess, very respectful, great side-by-side racing. Burgess has the inside for the following corner, but as I alluded to a few moments ago, you can hold on around the outside there. Kochev, however, does have to yield, but very good battling. Oh, but lap traffic up ahead, slowing them up. That could allow Kochev back through. No, Marks Burgess remains in 4th position. Graphic illustration there of why this circuit is so challenging in such a big grid as this. To update you on Connor Brown's progress after his early pit stop, he is having to do some fighting. He's up in 18th place now, but having to fight his way through some of the AM class traffic. I don't know what the cause was of his early stop. Maybe he underfueled the car. I can't imagine it was a strategy play. There is Connor Brown just going through the corkscrew. We follow, though, Vladimir Stefanov, who currently sits 3rd place in the AM class. He's really hustling Plamen Dimitrov at the moment. He's got to be careful with that sausage curb. Big hop of the curb and then straight into the pit lane. And looks like he's going to be followed as well by Vladimir Mavrodiev too. So the pit stop window does seem to be cracking open now. And let's see, as 14 car of Chris Vasiliov heads out there, will the leaders start to consider their pit stops this time? It is usually around this 25-minute mark that we start to see some of the front runners pitting. There is Julian Janowski. He's pursuing Boyko Shopov, who's having a very good run at the moment. Up in P7, has made up some good places. Started outside the top 10, of course. We saw him hustling his way into the top 10 a little earlier on. Janowski now was out of the final corner. None of the front runners pitted this time then. There's Connor Brown. He's almost back where he was before he pitted at this point. He was in that 10th, 11th place scrap just before the pit stop. He's now 15th, so he's not doing bad by any means. We get a look here at Rostislav Kochev having, I'm guessing, a bit of a moment. Did he carry too much speed into Andretti? That certainly looks like the case. Yeah, fairly straightforward, but also fairly easy to do. The problem you have to... oh, goodness me, that was a hairy rejoin as well, just ahead of the other car. Connor Brown, meanwhile, just on the rear of Plamen Dimitrov at the moment. Dimitrov, who now inherits the AM lead with Milan Milchev pitting this time by. Connor Brown, of course, has pitted while Dimitrov has not. Here comes Burgess into pit lane. So Thomas Marks Burgess elects to make his pit stop. He's the first of the front runners then to really make at least a scheduled pit stop. Again, I don't know the exact circumstances of Connor Brown's early stop. Speaking of Brown, he's still on the back of Dimitrov. Still not able to get through, and this will be frustrating for him, because if it was a strategy call, or even if it's an improvised strategy call after some circumstances going against him, he needs clear track space. He now gets it as Plamen Dimitrov peels in. Exiting onto the circuit now is Thomas Marks Burgess. Burgess back out on the circuit then. And he comes out just ahead of... I think that was a back marker who was just ahead of him. We see Connor Brown, though, rejoin the race just behind Anton Stratiev. So actually, I don't think Connor Brown has lost too much time there at all. There's Boyko Shopov, and here is our race leader. So Vladislav Shopov is now into pit lane and ready to make his stop. Philip Koenig has continued on for another lap, so Koenig is going to be hustling the last out of these tyres, I think, and trying to maybe get himself closer to the rear of Vladislav Shopov. But Shopov, after getting past Robin Skelton earlier on, Skelton who's also in the pit lane, once he got past, he has been dominating this race, just getting away at the sharp end of the order. Shopov exits the pit lane. And who's he got alongside him? That's one of the AM class runners further back, Julian Janowski. Currently pursuing the 10 car. That is Boyko Shopov. There is Philip Koenig then. He has inherited the race lead. I suspect he'll be in the pits this time by. Let's see if he does. Yes, indeed, he's into pit lane. Philip Koenig then, he was a good 8-9 seconds behind Vladislav Shopov before the pit stops. I can't imagine that he'll come out with that big of a gain over Shopov. Certainly he'll be behind Vladislav Shopov. Connor Brown, though, this has really worked out for him. He pitted on the edge of the top 10, 15 minutes into the race, and yes, he had to deal with some traffic here or there, but it still worked out. Connor Brown is in 6th position. He's moved up from, I think he was briefly in 11th on the lap before he pitted, and now he's there in 6th place. That works nicely for him. There goes Philip Koenig. He does join in behind Vladislav Shopov. Shopov is already through the first corners. Koenig, again, a good 7 seconds back, so he has actually gained a little time over Vladislav Shopov, but he's going to need a big final stint of this race to get anywhere near Vladislav Shopov before the end of the race. It's not impossible, but it's going to be a big effort. Here is Roy Vivek. He's pursuing our AM class leader, Milen Milchev. Vivek runs in the pro class, though, so Milen Milchev not having to deal with him directly. Milchev, the AM class leader, not by much, because Plamen Dimitrov, I think, is just behind these two. Dimitrov running second in AM for Negative Delta Academy. You can just see him in the back of shot. And then third in the AM class is Vladimir Mavrodiev. Anton Stratiev, meanwhile, is in 5th position, but he does have a big amount of pressure coming up behind him from Connor Brown of Impulse Racing. Fairly split up in the top 5 now, but Connor Brown in 6th place, certainly knocking on the door of Anton Stratiev. Looking at the intervals down the field, Shopov has 7.8 seconds over Koenig. Koenig has 7 seconds over Burgess. Burgess, in turn, has 7 seconds over Skelton. But Stratiev and Brown are very much at lock horns at the moment. Riding on board with the Ferrari 296 driver as Stratiev there goes a bit wide. As he heads up Rayhouse Straight there, did well to keep it pointing the right way on the dirt. Down the corkscrew we go with Connor Brown. Even though we're on a sim, you can feel your stomach turning as the car makes its way down. Brown drifting a little bit wide there out of the second last corner. I think the aero wash having its effect. Brown studying the rear of Anton Stratiev. Here is Robin Skelton. And Skelton's gap over Stratiev is coming down as well. So I suspect that we could have a three-car battle before too long if Robin Skelton isn't careful. I'm sure he'll be willing on Connor Brown to keep himself and Anton Stratiev busy, allowing him an easier run home to fourth place. Looking here at Julian Janowski in P13. He's pretty much on his own island there. Connor Brown, anything but on his own island. However, lap traffic up ahead. Will that go in favour of Stratiev or Brown? And Rostislav Kochev is closing in on them as well. So I said that it could be a three-car battle soon because they're closing in on Skelton, and they are minorly, or in fact at the moment I think Skelton is actually going quicker. Yes, he is. So Skelton may be able to hold on, but if Skelton does end up being caught by this battle for fifth place, it could be a four-car battle because Kochev is now right there with Brown and Stratiev as well within a second. Chopov is a little way back from him, so he'll be focusing purely on getting involved in this scrap as Connor Brown gets more and more feisty on the rear of Anton Stratiev. I think part of the reason for that is because he knows Kochev is coming in hot behind. The lap traffic up ahead of them, I believe, is Lazar Kaczarski, who's setting good pace, doing good laps out there. I don't think he's fully aware of what's coming up behind him yet, though. In fact, that's not Kaczarski, is it? That's the I think that's Nikolov Senior, as a matter of fact, in the JRS-backed machine. 104 car, and he actually does a good job there, just getting out of the way of everybody. Equally fair to all parties, the way that Nikolov Senior managed that situation. However, it has slightly freed up Stratiev from the pressure of Brown. Milen Milchev, meanwhile, is still under the fire of Roy Vivek. Again, pro driver chasing AM leader at the moment, but the AM leader doing his job, staying ahead, keeping the elbows out a little bit as well. He doesn't need to fight for these positions, but he's also got no reason at all to let Roy Vivek through. His closest AM competition, Plamen Dimitrov, is about 4 seconds up the road. So there you see. In fact, no, that was. Yes, it was. It was Dimitrov just in the back of shot. He just goes wide, actually. So second place in AM. We just saw in the back of shot Plamen Dimitrov having a bit of a moment there. So that allows Milen Milchev even more freedom to just keep on fighting that overall battle with Roy Vivek. And in fact, Vivek has just gotten past Milen Milchev. So Milchev, I think, has just lost out to Roy Vivek. That's what happened to Plamen Dimitrov. Another instance of just catching that sausage on the inside of the penultimate corner. Very easy to do. We saw there that the Vladislav Stefanov Mercedes did much the same in the background. Anton Stratiev still holding off the advances of Connor Brown. The race, as always, has flown by. 3.5 minutes of racing left to go. For Stratiev, it will be just 2 or 3 more laps to withstand this pressure from Connor Brown. Here's Vivek getting past Milchev. I think Milchev may have actually made that quite easy for him ultimately. maybe saw what I saw in the mirror and saw that his closest AM competition, Dimitrov, made an error. Meant that he had a nice margin, even nicer margin in the AM class, and could afford to let Vivek go past and do his own thing. Connor Brown, meanwhile, has ended up losing a little bit of time there in the traffic. I think that's Joris Ums just allowing him through. But Brown losing touch a bit with the rear of Anton Stratiev through the traffic there, and that means that Rostislav Kochev is suddenly not too far away at all. We ride on board with Brown once again through the corkscrew. Less than 2.5 minutes remain in this race then. Vladislav Shopov has been controlling it from the front since getting past Roban Skelton in the first phase of the race. Leads by 7.9 seconds over Philip Koenig. Burgess in third. Skelton remains in fourth place. And then behind him is this battle for fifth, sixth and seventh. Connor Brown trying to find his way past Anton Stratiev. Rostislav Kochev trying to find his way to bid for a top 5 finish as well. And once again, it does appear they are nominally closing on Skelton, but Skelton won't be too concerned with that. They seem a little bit too preoccupied with each other to really get to Skelton with the limited time that's left in the race. Just 90 seconds left to go. This will... Oh, Boyko Shopov has had a moment. Now, I briefly had my eyes off screen there. I only saw the end of that, but Boyko Shopov with a moment. Now, was there anyone else involved with that? He is now running in 8th place, so still well within the top 10. But Boyko having a moment, having gained 6 places in this race. It has been a solid effort, and it remains a solid effort even with that error. Anton Stratiev and Connor Brown 5th and 6th places. Very close together coming out of the final corner. Vasiliov, meanwhile, right there with Jordan and Svetanov, the Negative Delta Academy drivers. Meanwhile, final lap of the race is well underway for Vladislav Shopov at the front as well. He is uncontested at the front. I think Anton Stratiev wishes he were uncontested, but he is having to drive through the rear view mirrors with Connor Brown of Impulse Racing right there with him. Brown has done a very good job, alternate strategy, pitting early, and if he gets a top 5 finish, I think he'll feel it has paid off. Clock has hit 40 minutes then, and Vladislav Shopov will be just a couple of corners away from home as Brown continues to study the rear of Anton Stratiev. Shopov is coming to the line though. Out of the final corner comes Vladislav Shopov. He's chasing the AM podium drivers, but Vladislav Shopov has had a fabulous day. Pole position, then a curious pit lane start in race 1. He still recovered to 6th. And he ends up winning race number 2. Philip Koenig takes 2nd. Thomas Marks Burgess will be next in 3rd place. Then it will be Roban Skelton. Will Connor Brown make a dive for 5th though? Going into the final corner, he does not. So Anton Stratiev looks to be safe. Stratiev comes across the line in 5th position. Connor Brown takes 5th, and Rostislav Kochev looks very happy with his 7th place, zigzagging behind them. Boyko Shopov 8th, Ivo Serafimov 9th, and Venceslav Rachinov in 10th place. Big move from Chris Vasiliov on the very last opportunity there. Dives to the inside. I think that was actually one of the back markers that he got past there. In fact, no, that was that Janovsky? I don't know, but Vasiliov has gotten past there. In fact, opposite, sorry, that was Janovsky getting past Vasiliov at the end of the race there. But good racing nonetheless from all of those Porsche drivers in the just sub-top 10 region. That was Janovsky getting past Vasiliov. Vasil Zhekov will be disappointed to cross the line 14th. There is a very happy Milan Milchev. He wins the AM class, and it will just about be Plamen Dimitrov that finishes 2nd in class. Vladimir Mavrodiev there was right on his tail at the end of the race. But Milan Milchev makes it another win in the AM class for off-track racing. He's having a very good time of things at the moment in the SimGear GT3 Premier League. Last time out, it was apparently the first time in over 150 races that the BULERS organisation had no penalties to dish out. Somehow doubt that's going to be the case this time around. There was some drama in both races. Vladislav Shopov, though, is our championship leader and our race winner going into the season finale weekend. Philip Koenig in second place in that race ahead of Thomas Burgess. Skelton, fourth position. Fifth place, Anton Stratiev. Sixth place for Connor Brown. Seventh for Rostislav Kochev. Boyko Shopov takes eighth place ahead of Ivo Serafimov and Ventislav Rachinov. 11th place for Iordan Svetanov. Julian Janovsky takes 12 ahead of Chris Vasilyov, Vasil Zhekov and Roy Verveek. Then in 16th place, your AM class winner, Milan Milchev, just ahead of Plamen Dimitrov, and Vladimir Mavrodiev finishing in 18th place. Bozidar Andreev in 19th position. He was ahead of Lazar Kaczarski, who rounded out the top 20 ahead of Charles Kellyman. Alexander Sakov in 22nd place ahead of Joris Ums. Vladislav Stefanov in 24th place ahead of Ivelo Dimitrov in 25th, Dimitar Palauzov in 26th place, Alexander Nikolov 27th, Martin MJ Sampson, not sure what happened to him at the end there, but he ended up not finishing the race, 28th position, Dramaliev 29th, Stanchev 30th, Nikolov and Varbanov bringing us down to 32nd, but of course Varbanov did not take the start. A lot going on there at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, formerly, of course, Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca. I remember those days. But what a result that was for all of our drivers at the sharp end. Shopov with a very good result in the AM class. Milan Milchev doing a fabulous job as well. And for off-track racing, another successful weekend. We can now talk to some of our drivers. I believe we are going to start with the AM podium, and therefore with Vladimir Mavrodiev, who is in the booth with me at the moment. Vladimir, you were kind of there in amongst all the craziness at the start of race number one. Tell me about it. I mean, that looked very intense at the start of race one.
Yeah, it was indeed very intense, but the good thing was that the four of us, talked on the Discord, so that I had an idea what's going on. I hadn't managed to fall down, got around all of it. I guess again I was a bit lucky, the luckiest of my teammates.
You need luck sometimes, my friend. And that was a good race as well towards the end with Plamen Dimitrov. It looked as though you had good pace, and maybe one more lap, you could have made it a 1-2 for the team, right?
Yeah, almost.
I almost had you, as the Fast and Furious franchise once said. Doesn't look like we have Plamen Dimitrov with us, so we will talk to our other podium finisher in AM, and of course, Milan Milchev will get to stand on the virtual top step of the podium. Milan Milchev, another good result for you there. You were having a good race as well with Roy Verveek towards the end. Also, but another hugely successful weekend for you guys for off-track racing and your bid for AM Championship glory collectively as well.
Yes. Well, I've been lucky at first race and second race, and it's a good result for me, for the team.
Yeah.
Yes. I had this track. But here's the result.
And obviously with Krastin Stanchev, your teammate, struggling a little bit this time, I think that brings you a lot closer to him in the championship battle. You guys are going to be really, really close, I think, once all the points are worked out going into Suzuka. So how does Suzuka work for you? What do you make of that track?
Oh, I don't know. Suzuka is a very hard track, and we see what next to Suzuka.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let the fastest one win, I guess.
Yeah.
Will be quite similar pace again, I hope.
There you go. Interesting stuff. So we'll keep an eye on that AM class battle in the season finale in a couple of weeks. Great to hear from you guys again. I've spoken to you a lot recently, Milen and Dimitar. Have a great rest. Milen and Vladimir. Have a great rest of your evening, and congratulations on a solid result.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. See you next time.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we will indeed see you next time. Moving on to the pro class then. Moving on to our top three there. And we'll start with Thomas Marks Burgess, who took the third step of the podium. Thomas obviously winning in race number one. Not the smoothest of sailing, though. A little bit of a moment at one point in that race. Still managed to claim the win. Your car looked really strong underneath you today, and it looked like, to me at least, that you gel well with Laguna Seca. Does that match your experience behind the wheel?
Honestly, no. Before the race, I wasn't too confident, but into the practice session, I saw that we were up there, and I was happy than I was going into it at least. I think race one, obviously, incredibly unfortunate for Vlad with his disconnect. He would have been tricky to beat, but it was just trying to make sure I finally got that first win. The lap car didn't make it too easy, but we got away with it in the end, thankfully. And yeah, the second race was just trying to get through the pack as quick as we could, but it's such a tricky track to overtake, so it was difficult. But yeah, thankfully through some good moves and the strategy to get ahead of I can't remember the name, but who I to go under the pits. But yeah, strategy got me back into P3, which was good.
Yeah, and it was actually talking of strategy on the Impulse Racing camp. Maybe you can give us a bit of an inside scoop, because obviously we saw Connor Brown pitting at the 15-minute mark, which isn't something we typically see in these races. Was that strategy, or was that underfueling? What was going on there?
Yeah, so he was saving fuel in the pack, but he was losing too much time and he couldn't make a move. So he made a decision to try and get the undercut and go long on the second stint. But unfortunately, he got held up by someone, I think, which completely ruined it for him. But otherwise, he would have been up there as well easily. It was a good strategy. He did well, but just didn't quite pay off because of the lap car, I think it was.
Even then, I mean, he was 11th place and before the stop, or 10th place before the stop, and ended up 6th. So to an extent, it did pay off for him. That's interesting to hear. Then the classic F1 refueling era undercuts being used. Thomas, great result from you today. 2 podiums. Hope you have a great rest of your evening, my friend.
Thank you very much. You too.
And moving on to Philip Koenig. Philip, great to see you out there dueling as you were, especially with Robin Skelton in the early stages of the race. Great to be talking to you again. Talk me through your day.
Hello, good evening. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I had some issues with my hardware in the first race. I got some freezes, which was like 1 whole second, and I was jumping around, and I was just trying not to be near anybody, and I could manage it. And then I did some restarts on the PC and on the simulation, and worked out. For the second race, I had no issues at all, and I got some confidence. And then I was matching the pace of Władysław, and yeah, and absolutely happy with my results for today. And yeah, let's see what's gonna happen in Suzuka.
And Robin Skelton, while his ultimate pace may not have been quite on the level of yourself or Vladislav, it really did look like he was doing a good job of defending against you. I don't know about from your perspective, but certainly to my eye, it looked like he was putting his car in all the right places.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun, first of all, and the track is one of those kinds that it's really hard to overtake. So and I really enjoyed it, and he really did a good job. He left a lot of space. Yeah, it was just nice fight, and yeah, I would like to have more of them.
Excellent. Well, the downside of that fight was that it did allow Vladislav Shopov to disappear off up ahead of you. And Vladislav, I think Thomas Marks Burgess told us a little bit of the story. It sounds like after your brilliant pole position set on your very first flying lap, it sounds like a disconnect stopped you from actually taking the start from the front of the grid.
Yeah, as soon as I gridded, by the way, I don't know how well you hear me because I'm still having internet issues.
Oh, you're perfect. Don't worry.
Good. As soon as I pressed the grid, everybody started flashing, and then the simulation just disconnected me, so I couldn't grid. But yeah, and it was actually quite lucky that I got into P6. I was hoping for P10 at the very least, but yeah, P. That was amazing. I did not expect that. No.
I can see that you are a little bit in and out as that went on, but we are hearing you okay, Vladislav. Obviously, that first race, as you said, it went pretty much exactly to plan, given the issues you were facing. Race 2, though, you got past Robin fairly quickly, and that allowed you to build the lead over Philip. And of course, what that means as well is that you will leave this race with, again, still a fairly significant lead over Philip Koenig in the championship. Heading into Suzuka, I mean, how are you feeling? Are you confident with the Suzuka circuit? And is it starting to feel like a distinct possibility that you might walk away with the gold here?
It is certainly looking like a possibility. I am feeling okay about circuit. I am not feeling okay about my technical that way.
You know what? I'm having GPU issues with my system as well, so we're in the same boat there, but for different reasons. Vladislav, I'm glad that you got to recover from the disconnect, unfortunate as that was, and I look forward to seeing all three of you guys from the Pro Class podium going at it once again in a fortnight's time at Suzuka. Good luck out there, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Great to hear from our Pro Class podium. Vladislav Shopov, in spite of the issues he was having, comes out of Laguna Seca as our championship leader. Will he be our championship winner? You'll have to tune in to the 7th and final round to find out. There is money on the line, prize pots on the line in the season finale. It will be on the 26th of May, 2 weeks' time. Join us for Suzuka as Season 8 of the SimGear GT3 Premier League comes to its close.